In this video, we are reviewing the installation of the lever to rocker conversion kit for a Club Car DS series drive system. Before the video begins, I would like to bring to your attention that the contactor that we are installing in the video is rated at 36 volts as indicated by the sticker on the front of the unit. This is because the customer that allowed us to use his vehicle for the film session was originally planning on providing us with a 36 volt lithium battery to run his vehicle on. By the time we finished the installation, our customer had decided to go with one of our 51-volt Eco Battery lithium bundles, which is designed to operate on a 48-volt drive system. These reversing contactors all look exactly the same, so the video is consistent for all of them, regardless of the coil voltage. We went back in and swapped out the contactor with a 48-volt unit prior to the last part of our video where we test vehicle operation. Let's get started. The lever to rocker conversion kit can be found in the solenoids, diodes, and resistor section of our online store. Please select the options that apply to you from the drop-down menus as shown. The price will change according to the options that you select. The coil voltage must match the operation voltage of your vehicle. The SW182 is to be used for applications up to 400 amps. The SW202 is designed to be used for applications over 400 amps.
I'm David Hicks with Revolution Golf Cars in Augusta, Georgia. Today, we're going to be installing an SW182 reversing contactor on a Club Car DS with the series drive system. The reason we install a reversing contactor instead of a heavy-duty forward and reverse switch is because this particular customer asked for the toggle style switch instead of the lever. It's easier to control. It actually handles more amperage than what a heavy-duty forward and reverse switch does, which is going to be good in the future. It keeps the switch from melting, and it's going to last a lot longer.
This is what the contactor looks like. On top, you'll see it's got several high amperage connections with copper bus bars. And essentially all this thing is a remote control F&R switch that runs off of the wiring that comes from a toggle switch. It does the same thing as the rotary style forward and reverse switch. All it does is reverse the polarity to the motor to make it run forward or reverse. On each side, you'll see a series of terminals to engage or disengage each side of the solenoids to make the car run forward or reverse. And it's important that we put the diode that comes with this kit on correctly with the positive side of the diode on the same terminal as what the positive activation wire is going to go on, and we're going to use the top terminals for that, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The kit comes with a factory housing for the forward and reverse switch, a factory rocker switch from an IQ car, 2 coil suppression diodes, and 1 polarity protection diode. And of course it comes with hardware for the F&R housing as well. Remove the forward and reverse switch by taking the Phillips screw out of the lever. Pull the lever off and then take these 3 screws out. And the switch will come off. All right, take the wires off of the old switch. These wires on the front of the switch have these nuts on them. That's the 7/16. Take those off. And then on the back, these 2 are 5/16. Once we remove these, the switch will be completely removed from the car. And we can discard this switch. This switch is actually melted, and that's the reason this car was in here, is because it wouldn't run in reverse. If you look right here, you can see that contact has actually gotten hot and sunk down into the switch. And that's the reason that it won't make contact with the connector here, and it won't run in reverse. It runs in forward okay because this one and this one are good. But this one right here is sunk down in the switch, and it will not work because it does not make contact with the other connector. If we remove this bus bar right here, you can actually see on the back side of it where it has gotten hot and pulled up. The plastic is pulled up. I don't know if you could see that in the video or not, but it has gotten extremely hot and melted all that plastic. That's the number one problem for these switches. Okay, so now we're going to mount the contactor and the switch. The first thing you need to do is install these diodes on the back of the contactor, because once you get it put on, it's going to be hard to get back here to these terminals. So you're going to have to bend these out and then plug the diode in. Make sure you've got the striped side of the diode facing up on the top terminal. It's actually marked positive right here, so the positive to the stripe on both sides. If you do that, then it is correct. Then we're going to take this housing. We're going to put 2 bolts in it. We're going to put the upper, and then this one here on the driver's side, we're going to go ahead and start it. We're going to take our 3/8 socket, tighten them up. And then on the other side, we're going to take a big fender washer, 1/4-inch fender washer. And our bolt. Start it in the back of the housing. Can't see, it's hard to see. Actually, let's loosen these up just a little bit until we get this other one started. Okay, there we go. Now it's in there. Take the contactor and stick it behind that fender washer just like that. Tighten it up. Okay. Be careful not to over tighten it. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take a 1/4-inch drill bit. I'm going to go through the other side. I'm going to take a truss head Phillips screw that matches the screws that came out of the other switch, just a little shorter, and push it through this tab over here that we drilled through the other ear in the contactor. And then we're going to put a nut and a lock washer on the back side of that. All right, that is tight. Now we're going to go back and retighten these other 2 right here. All right, that's it. And we're done. That's all there is to it as far as the mounting is concerned. And now we got to do the wiring. Okay, we've removed all the hardware from the terminals that we're going to use. We're going to go ahead and hook our large gauge wires up to our contactor. On the top here, you're only going to use one of these 4 terminals as far as putting a wire on it. All these other ones are just used to jump power from one side to the other. So you want to make sure all these nuts are tight, that you're not going to put a wire on. So as far as the wiring goes, this one right here in this corner is the only one that we're going to put wire on top of the contactor. So if you look at the diagram that comes with this kit that we send you, you'll see which wire goes on it, and it's going to be the wire that goes to the A2 post on the motor, which is this white wire. This is the wire that was hooked to the bottom of the front side of the forward and reverse switch. Okay, we've got all of our main heavy gauge wiring connected to the top of the reversing contactor. So the next step is to run all the small wiring. The first thing I like to do is provide a good solid ground to these 2 small terminals on the contactor coils. The red wire with the white stripe that was formerly connected to the center micro switch behind the old switch is actually a really good ground. It runs all the way back to the B negative terminal on the controller. So what we can do here is we can actually splice that wire back, take a new piece of
wire of, any color. It really doesn't matter. I like to use black just because it's a ground. Twist those wires together. And put a 1/4-inch blade terminal on them and crimp it down. Looks like that. You got 2 wires in 1 terminal. Come back here, plug it into the bottom, and then take the black wire and run it back over to the other side, and then cut it to length, and then put another blade terminal on it. And plug it into the bottom on this side. That takes care of our ground. Okay, and the next step would be to run the forward and reverse positive wires to the rocker switch. So we're going to take, I like to use the brown and the blue, which represent the factory wire colors on an IQ car. And that's just going to help us later, and if we've got to pull the switch out and do anything to the wiring at the switch, we'll know what each wire does based on the color there. Again, you can use any color you want. So we're going to take this brown, which represents forward. Even though it's plugged into the reverse side of the switch, it's going to represent forward, because when the rocker rocks over towards the forward position, the bottom of the rocker rocks over to the reverse side, and vice versa. So this is going to plug into the reverse side of the switch, even though it's hot when it's in forward, like so. It's going to plug into the reverse side of the switch like that. And when you rock it over and forward, it makes a connection to that wire. This right here, the center pin, is going to be the hot wire that feeds the switch. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But for now, we're going to run these wires. So leave a little bit of slack coming out of the housing. That way, if you ever have to pull the switch out, you'll have some room to pull it out. And we're going to run this brown wire to the positive terminal on the forward side of the contactor, which is, according to the diagram, it's the driver's side of the contactor. So we're going to put another blade terminal on here, crimp it down, plug it into the positive side right here. That's the forward. Then we're going to repeat the same procedure for the other side using blue. So we're going to put a blade terminal on the blue wire, like so. Plug it in over here. Run it up through the hole towards the switch. Put the terminal on it and plug it into the other side of the switch, opposite the brown wire that we just installed, like so. That takes care of the forward and reverse. Okay, our next step is to provide power to the center pin of the switch. We're going to use orange for that. We're going to push it through the hole, bring it back around, and we're going to put a blade terminal on it. We'll plug it into the middle of the switch, just like that. Blue, orange, brown. Put the switch back into the housing with the blue
towards the driver's side. Snap the switch down. Now we've got the orange here. So the next thing we need to do is locate these two wires right here. The two wires that were on the front micro switch up against the back of the switch. You got the white with the black stripe here and the green with the white stripe. So we're actually going to connect those two wires together. So what we're going to do, we're going to strip those back, twist them together tightly, twist them together nice and tight, and then we're going to take a blue butt connector for a little bit larger wire, and we're going to crimp it down onto that connection. Then we're going to take the orange wire that comes from the center of the switch and run it in to the other side of that butt connector. Okay, so the way this works is this green wire right here with the white stripe, when you press the pedal and the micro switch clicks in the M core, it's going to divert 48 volts positive up this green wire. Then it's going to go into this connector and it's going to split two different ways. It's going to split into the orange and it's going to split into this white with the black stripe. The white with the black stripe goes all the way back to the main solenoid and makes the solenoid click every time the pedal is depressed. It's going to run into this orange and it's going to go into the back of the new switch, and depending on the position of the switch, it's going to divert that energy either to this side or this side of the solenoid, of the contactor rather, to make it click when you press the pedal simultaneously with the main solenoid. And depending on whether this side or this side is getting power, is going to determine which way the car goes, forward or backwards. And that's really all there is to it as far as the wiring to make this work. Again, I'm going to touch on this. This was already done on this car for the half-speed reverse from micro switch number 3. Connect green to white, solid green to solid white, that is. Leave the black wire disconnected. We could tape all those up, get them out of the way. And again, the orange wire from the reverse buzzer. If you're not using a reverse buzzer, tape it up, put it out of the way. If you are using a reverse buzzer, then there is a separate row of pins on that switch. You can actually plug that orange wire into the center pin of the other row of pins on the switch that we used, and then splice into that red wire with the white stripe for a ground and put it on the forward side of the switch so it's hot when you rock it over to the reverse side. That will make a connection between the original two reverse buzzer wires, and the reverse buzzer will work if you choose to do it that way. If you've got any questions about it, feel free to ask. Okay, so now that we have showed you how to hook everything up to make it work, we're going to go back in now and show you how to make the reverse buzzer work. So what you're going to do, I like using a different color wire than anything we've used so far. I'm going to use yellow for the buzzer. So we're going to take two ends of the yellow and go in here towards the switch. We're going to put a ring terminal on both ends. Excuse me, not a ring terminal, but a blade terminal rather. So it'll plug into the switch. Okay, so we've got these two. We're going to take the switch and we're going to locate the other row of pins. And we are going to put one next to the blue and one next to the orange. Got to make sure that these are on the second row of pins. This row of pins and this row of pins do not come in contact with each other anywhere in the switch. This is a totally separate circuit. So
When we rock this switch over to the reverse position, it takes the incoming power from this yellow wire and diverts it into this one. So we can put the switch back in, and then I'll show you what to do with the other ends of these yellow wires. All right, so you got a big loop here. I'm going to cut it right here at the loop. I'm going to run it down. We've got to tie one end of it into the ground wire. And I like to use this ground wire right here that is on the coil for the solenoid that we put on earlier. Cut that wire, and much like we did before, we're going to use a big blue butt connector and join these wires together in the butt connector. Okay, that's it for our ground. In the other yellow wire, we're going to take a red butt connector, tie the yellow to the orange. This is the orange wire here that was originally on micro switch number 2. The middle switch on the back of the old F&R. And that's it. We now have a reverse buzzer circuit. We are done. All we got to do now is hook the battery back up and test it. Okay, this is the Polarity protection diode. And what we've done here is we have crimped on a 3/16 ring terminal on one end and a butt connector on the other end. And we've applied heat to make the heat shrinkable butt connector and heat shrinkable ring terminal shrink down onto the wire, as tight as possible. So we'll do this for you. We'll put these ends on this diode, and what we need to do is we need to place it on the green wire behind the dash where it feeds the power to the key switch. And what this does is it prevents power from backfeeding into the system. Okay, this is how we're going to install it. We've popped the dash loose and gotten to the back of the key switch. We're going to find the green wire right here that feeds the key switch. Take the screw out. If you've got other wires on that terminal as well, make note of that, because they're going to have to go back on there as well. Pull the green wire up, cut the existing ring terminal off, splice it back, and crimp the diode assembly onto the end of the wire. Take your heat gun, apply heat to it, and shrink this butt connector down. Okay, here we go. We got a nice weather-tight seal here, and now all we got to do is put the ring terminal back on.
Put everything back on the key switch like it was. Make sure none of your terminals are touching the other side of the key switch. And if everything is clear, we can put it back together. Put the dash back in, and we're done. Now we can put the battery back in it and test drive it.
All right, we've got the battery back in, and we're going to test everything out to make sure it works. First thing to do is turn on the key and the reverse buzzer. It does work. Put it in neutral, press the accelerator. The primary solenoid will click, but this one will not. This one will not click unless it's in forward or reverse. So we're going to try forward. Clicks, and the vehicle does run. We'll put it in reverse, do it again, and the vehicle runs in reverse as well. So that's all there is to it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. We're glad to help.